Hey everyone, I've had a couple of requests about the three social philosophies that we're talking about here in Chapter 3 for Intro to Human Services, and I'm actually covering this in my online class today and thinking about you guys and thinking about the best way to explain it, because I still think that our chapter kind of leaves you a little bit hanging. So I just wanted to create a quick video for you guys just to go over the three social philosophies and hopefully clarify a few things. So let's start with the one that most people are familiar with, social Darwinism. Okay, so we know the whole philosophy of Darwinism about evolution and survival of the fittest, and that kind of bleeds over into the ideas of the social philosophy of social Darwinism. Very much survival of the fittest. People that adhered to this particular philosophy felt that there was a natural order to life and that only the strong survive. If people couldn't meet their own needs, then they were unfit, and not only would they not survive, but if we were to interfere, or if people were to interfere by rendering support, help, assistance, then that would supposedly, according to this train of thought or school of belief, it would supposedly basically it would upset the natural order of things. It would almost be considered any attempt to help the less fortunate would be against progress, which depended on natural selection. It was really a popular belief between like 1870 and 1880, but honestly it really served as a rationalization for shady business practices. It encouraged the belief that nothing could really be done about situations and that the poor would always be poor if we continue to assist, or if people continue to assist, and it just continued to keep things in a state where people were still needing assistance. It really didn't do anything to help the situation of the working class, of the poor. They were still continuing to work long hours in hazardous conditions, low wages. There was still child labor running rampant. You have to really think about the context of this time period too. We're talking about the 19th century, so basically the 1800s, and think about what's going on in the 1800s. So that is social Darwinism. That's usually the easiest one to understand. The next one that I'd like to go over is individualism. And I'm going to go over something here that our text doesn't talk about, so you'll want to take note. It kind of glosses over individualism in the sense that I think it's important for you to have a better understanding of individualism by understanding its roots. Its roots are in Puritanism, the Puritan faith. And so individualism viewed America as the land of opportunity. They believed, if you adhered to this particular social philosophy, they believed that everything was possible through hard work. And not only was everything possible, but hard work, remember, it has its Puritan roots. Hard work was the road to salvation. And, that road could be traveled by anyone if you just worked hard enough. Also, they believed that poverty was a sign of spiritual weakness. And so, it was very entwined into the faith. That's not to say that you had to be Puritan to adhere to this faith. To this social philosophy. Please don't misunderstand that. I'm just saying that its roots came from the Puritan faith. So, of course, individualism said that it was basically up to you, to the individual, what your outcome was going to be in life. And if you worked hard enough, then you could have anything that you wanted. They emphasized the importance of work ethic, hard work, being thrifty for financial success. Poverty was a sign of spiritual weakness. Wealth, on the other hand, was considered virtuous, and hard work, like I said, represented the road to salvation. Now, the one that's always a little more murky for people is the third social philosophy, and that's laissez-faire. Laissez-faire, understand this, it was a French term that really meant live and let live. And that all sounds like a wonderful thing, but really it wasn't. And it was different from social Darwinism, but not really to a certain degree. Understand this. Laissez-faire was it had its roots in an economic concept, meaning that they didn't really want, why does the government have to be involved? Live and let live. Let the government stay away from our businesses. Let the government, a perfect society is one with less government. Let the government stay away from our business practices. Let the government stay out of handling or serving, taking care of the poor and the needy. They felt that the most desirable government was one that governed the least. And that really kind of pushed everything against, that negated society's responsibility to help the less fortunate. Remember, up until this point, we had the Elizabethan Poor Laws. And one of the biggest things with the Elizabethan Poor Laws is that it was the first government legislation that said that it is the government's responsibility to care for the needy. And this kind of goes against that train of thought. Those adhering to this philosophy, they opposed for the provision of any human services as a right of the individual. But let me back up here. Remember, laissez-faire, it was an economic concept. Think about, during this time period, who the wealthy are. Usually the wealthy, we're talking about early industrialization and urbanization. So remember, during that time period, we have businesses and factories. And who are the money makers? The people with the businesses and the factories and so forth. And so they're the ones that are overseeing all of this labor, people working on the production lines, or people that are working in the factories, working in on the looms, on the lines, whatever it meant for them to do. And so of course they wanted less government, because if government intervened, then they may have regulations against unfair labor. There were no labor laws then. You had child labor that was going on, deplorable work conditions, and there was also deplorable housing conditions, inadequate housing. So if the government were to be involved, then that might be at a cost to them, the people that were lining their pockets, the people that had, that were in charge of these major industries or these big production units or whatever. So just understand that laissez-faire was really more about economics, and it really just continued to look at, if you look at it throughout time and history, and this goes without saying, if you look deep enough, an issue is going to have roots in money. There's going to be an underlying theme of money somehow, some way, throughout the beginning of time to the end of time, more than likely. So I hope that wraps up laissez-faire for you and social Darwinism, and I hope that this explanation gives you a better understanding of the three social philosophies. These social philosophies, they really, during this time period, remember we're talking 1800s, it influenced social justice, or really basically a lack of social justice in America. And these three social philosophies, they discouraged really the provision of human services, and they limited services to those who desperately needed assistance. And so what that ended up doing is that the private sector had to bridge the gap. They had to fill the need. And so many wealthy individuals, not all wealthy people, don't get me wrong, not all wealthy people that I talk about, the factories that were owned by wealthy people or whatever, not all of them were operated under these conditions. Some of them did have humanitarian efforts, and that was in the form of organizing and reforming institutions, mental hospitals, almshouses, workhouses, prisons, homes for unwed mothers, and also delinquent youths. So during this time, because of all of these social philosophies and the government was kind of waxing and waning, then you had the needs of the people that were being met through private means. And you'll see throughout time and throughout history the waxing and waning of the involvement of the government in rendering human services. But even later on, by the middle of the 19th century, the mid-1800s, the need was still so great. You had immigrants coming to America. You had people kind of migrating from the rural areas into the cities, and needs just were so great. And so it got to the point, even in the middle of the 19th century, that private sector couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle meeting the needs, and so then you started seeing a shift where the private sector and the public sector had to work along side by side to meet those needs. You also have an assignment this week about the three social philosophies. I've outlined lots of information in your assignment about. I've even given an example of what I'm looking for, remember, you're going to take the 3 social philosophies and you're going to choose one current social issue, for example, it could be poverty, and you're going to apply each philosophy to that social problem by pretending that you're an agency meeting that need. For example, let's say that I was writing a mission statement for Brighter Horizons Human Services, and I'm going to do it just from the individualism social philosophy. So if I were to write a social philosophy, if I were to write a mission statement using this social issue of poverty from their perspective, from the perspective of individualism. Remember, the road to salvation, spiritual weakness, poverty, spiritual weakness, all of those things about that. I would say Brighter Horizons Human Services Agency's mission is to encourage hard work, ingenuity, and perseverance in individuals and effort to make a difference in the lives of individuals and families, and thus impacting communities and growing the kingdom of our Heavenly Father. We believe our greater purpose is not on this earth, but only through hard work that one will fully realize the road to eternal salvation. And now remember, I say those things because they did have the Puritan roots. And then you would take that same social issue and you would examine it from the perspective of laissez-faire, and then again from social Darwinism, and you would form a mission statement from that perspective. So I hope this is helping for you guys. You guys take care, and if you have questions, one more thing. Don't forget, when you're doing your homework assignments, please answer them in complete sentences. Not just complete sentences, but show your question and your response, and answer in detail. This is your time to shine, your opportunity to really let me know that you're understanding, and I offer feedback. So don't skimp out and never miss your assignments. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. You guys take care, and let me know if you need anything. Email me, and that's what I'm here for. Take care.